welcome to Be My Guest. Today we are honoring Dr. R. Subramania Iyer with his daughter, his wife and his granddaughter. I will leave Ranjini Saigal, the daughter, to tell us a little bit more about Dr. R. Subramania Iyer.
What an honor to be here, Hamsha. We are truly grateful to have this opportunity to talk about this great man who I had the honor of calling my father. His name, R. Subramania Iyer, and he came from this very little village in the Kanyakumari district. If you know India, it's like ice cream cone. He came from the tip. And from that tip, this young man then blossomed into this great scientist, great engineer, and became this professor who was one of the founding members of the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. As you know, IIT, or the Indian Institute of Technology, is one of the premier institutions of engineering in India that was founded a long time ago. And along with the students, I think he has created tremendous impact, not just in India, but in the world around. So it's really a pleasure to be here to talk about it.
So he is the person we are talking today. We're paying tribute to him. So let me introduce my guests now. Ranjini Saigal, the daughter, Parvati Iyer, the wife, and Amrita Saigal, the granddaughter.
Yes.
And it is such a pleasure to sit and talk just about him. So as we said, he's Dr. R. Subramania Iyer. He was a founder, faculty of the Indian IIT, Institute of Technology, Bombay, where he served as the Dean of Academic Programs. He was a stalwart in the field of structural engineering. One of the first projects he worked in the final year of his college was to design the Gandhi Samadhi, which, if people don't know, is a memorial in Kanyakumari. He was tasked to ensure the sunlight lights the Samadhi on October 2nd.
Yes.
And that is his birthday,
Yes,
correct?
Mahatma
This is Mahatma Gandhi.
Yeah, the father of the nation.
Yes. He was a beloved and respected professor who made significant contributions to the growth of civil engineering department at IIT Bombay in its formative years as Dean of Academic Programs. He was instrumental in introducing several far-reaching policies regarding the academic system of IIT Bombay. He was passionate about teaching, and each student had a very special place in his heart. Students from IIT Bombay had a transformational impact on the world at large, and he felt fulfilled. A Renaissance man, he felt strongly about empowering women through education, that I know. In the early 70s, he supported his wife, Srimati Parvati Iyer, who was only a high school graduate at the time of her marriage, to further her studies and helped her realize her ambition of becoming a professor of English. He took a keen interest in his daughters' and grandchildren's education and encouraged them to study engineering. Passionate about the arts, he also encouraged his daughters to study music and dance. He helped guide the first Vision 8 production of Ramayana, created by his daughter Ranjini Saigal. A socially conscious teacher and researcher, he was also a gifted painter, poet, orator. Born in a very poor family, as you said, in a remote village in Kanyakumari district. He overcame incredible number of challenges, including visual disability, to achieve excellence. He never used his disability or challenges as an excuse to not achieve his potential. His message: work hard, think positive, and do not let anything stand in the way of attaining your God-given potential. We hope the gift we give in his name will allow many others to see the world forward.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
And you know, reading all of that, I know I met him, and 19, 20 years ago, and I saw all of that, and you carried so well. So, you know, coming from this very poor district, how did he even get this vision
to become this person that he is? I will let, of course, my mother and my daughter, tell you more about it. But in my view, I think he was special. God gifted him with a very powerful mind, and a beautiful heart.
Yes.
I think the combination of that is what made him so great. You know, he was visually challenged. You know, from very young age, he couldn't see very well, and till he was much older, I didn't realize how little he could see.
So this happened when he was very young?
Oh, he was born with visual challenges when he was born, and yet he used the power of his mind to overcome any challenges that he had, and he always strove for excellence. Academics was very important to him. He never stood second in his life, and despite having no resources, his father was illiterate, his mother was not that educated, and still he was state first in his high school. He was always number one because he said there was no choice for him but to excel always. Beyond that, how he learned about poetry, how he had such a gift for painting. Even though he was not able to see that much, his paintings were amazing. So I think his mind was what he used to, you know, succeed so much. Amma, would you like to add to that? What is it that made Appa so special to be able to take over the world?
I think he is a very focused man.
Focus, yes.
Very
I
focused,
think, yes,
and he will keep his target. And he will always say, I can do it, and I will do it.
And he did it.
Yes, he did it. And he used to tell me, when I put my step forward, never going back.
That is so
Yes,
true, and it's so
yes.
it's a wonderful thing to live by.
Yes.
But you just get married as a very young bride, and you went, and he at that age was such a visionary.
Visionary, yes.
That got you into. You want to say more about
your education?
I myself had a passion for higher education.
Right.
But my father was not a believer in female formal education, so he discontinued my studies, thinking that that is the way to go about it.
Right.
Depending upon on the system. Then I expressed my desire, and he said, not now. When the time comes, I will. And then after raising our family for 10 years, he said, now is the time. You can go back.
Okay.
And he thought perhaps it will be not only fulfilling my ambition, it will be great help and support to the family and the organization. And even his mother had some doubts in the family how a woman in those days could go, but he said she will go and she will do it, and that is the end of it. And though I enrolled myself in the college, it was he who is my mentor, my teacher, he is one who inspired me at every failure. He told me, if you don't fail, you cannot succeed.
That is true.
He said, have guts to fail, otherwise stop studying, he told me.
Wow, that is so.
And I will add that I think last year he said one of the things he's really proud of was the fact that my mother got an education, got an identity for herself, and, you know, got an income, and everything about her. She is not just the wife or the mother. She is this great professor who had so much impact.
What we forgot, what I neglected to mention earlier on, is you actually have 2 children.
Yes.
And both of them are also engineers.
Yes.
And your children have children, which is now Amrita and her brother Arun, who are engineers too.
Yes.
So that was
Yes.
Yeah.
all he's doing, and I know your son-in-law is an engineer too.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Because
think
he took care of the education of my daughters, and many of my friends used to envy me. Mrs. Iyer is so carefree about the education. He took care. Even Ranjani, she was abroad when she was born. When he came, she could talk only in Malayalam.
Oh,
Yes.
because that was your mother
yes.
tongue.
Mother tongue.
But still he said, yes, she knows Malayalam, she will learn many things. So that was his confidence in the children.
And multilingual, all right.
Yeah.
How many languages do you talk?
About 5, yes.
Yes, and I saw you jump from one language to the other. It's like, what was that you just said? You know, and
No.
people that understand know that, you know, you jump from Tamil to Hindi to English to English, and all with profession, you know.
Yeah, no, it was his motivation for me to learn. For him, it was not just engineering, the scriptures, the literature, anything we learned, he wanted us to do it well.
Right.
So, you know, when I studied dance, you know, he really wanted me to study it very, very well. And he encouraged me to start the dance class. And he was like, when you have a potential, don't waste your time. use it to that full. And I think that's what he told our children as well. He was very influential in my children's education too. Whenever he came in the summers, he wanted.
I mean, he spent him and my grandmother spent a couple years living with us from first grade to 12th grade, and I can honestly say if me or my brother struggled with homework or anything, my grandfather, who I called Tata, I think one thing we haven't talked about is his patience and his ability to, if there is no such thing as I can't with him. I think that is fundamental to who he is. There is no I can't. There is I will figure it out. Yes, I might struggle, but we will take a step back. We will dissect it. We will figure out the problem, and he will sit by you for however many hours it takes until you diagnose what that core problem is. Why can't I solve that math problem? Okay, let us go back to the basics. And I think he has a very unique method that he used that was very effective. And it wasn't just telling you the answers. It was asking you the questions until you figured it out so that next time you would not make those same mistakes.
So he had the gift of knowing how to present.
And I think he was obviously an amazing professor and always was one of the most well-loved professors at IIT. And a lot of it goes back to how much he cares about his students, and he treated his grandchildren the exact same way.
Yeah, he was a phenomenal teacher because of his patience and his ability to know how to teach. I don't think many people will agree. There is rarely a greater teacher than my father. I would absolutely say.
I saw that too firsthand, and it is anybody that's come in touch with him knows that he went to their level. Nobody
said,
ever will tell that this man is such an educated man with such aspirations, and just very inspiring to whoever he spoke to.
Exactly, he could connect at every level, and he will start from your level, and he knew that he could take you to the level that he thinks you are capable of.
Oh yes.
And that was his very, very special thing, I think,
Yes, that is a very, very special.
I will say that of my children too, right? I mean, whenever even recently, I think one of the things about my father was that he always felt we should never stop learning. And now, Amrita is wearing this T-shirt of the company that my son started. It's not a field that he knew, because it's electrical engineering and computer science, but he could sit with my son and understand this everything. He was so curious. Even the day before he passed away, he was so curious, and even today my son will say the hardest questions comes from Tata. And once you answer Tata's questions, you will do better in whatever you do.
Oh, wow.
You agree with that?
And in terms of, just to give an example of how far his curiosity goes, I remember, earlier this year, he was asking over last Christmas, he was asking me and my brother questions about how does Venmo work? How does PayPal work? How many 87-year-old people, he's never used a cell phone, because by the time cell phones came around, his vision, he unfortunately didn't have the vision to be able to use a cell phone, but he still understood all of this. Whether it was Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, he would ask us so many questions about why is this, why is the world moving towards this, what are you young kids doing? To even know the words used to shock us.
Right, yes. So without being able to read, so he's obviously really got his ears and eyes open all over and all the time.
And I would say that, it's true of my mother too,
yes.
but both of them, my father attended a birthday in San Francisco with my children, and he could easily connect with all their friends.
Yeah, he came to my 30th birthday party on a Saturday night in downtown San Francisco, and I was proud to have him and my grandmother there, having them interact with all of our friends and having great conversations, and I think we're very fortunate. How many people are excited to have their parents and grandparents at their young people birthday parties?
They're so proud to be for their graduation.
Oh yes.
Both Arun and Amrita.
Yes. Oh yes.
That's why when he met Karthik also, the first thing he told me, the boy is highly educated, and he is a professor, you know. That is a very great asset in one's life, like that.
So Karthik is Amrita's husband.
Yes.
She just got married recently, and Arun is your son.
Exactly.
My
and
brother, yeah.
her brother, and he started a business called Thunkable. Am I right?
Yes.
So this is what we were talking a few seconds ago.
Yes, you're right.
So Tata was there to sit and have this conversations with the grandchildren.
Yeah. And I would say that.
And I think Tata, I mean, Thunkable is a company that it's a drag and drop tool to build mobile apps. So if you don't know how to code and you want to build an Android or iOS app, you can use Thunkable. But what's amazing, so this is obviously something Tata doesn't understand anything about, but he pushed, and I was also working with my brother at Thunkable, and he would push me and Arun to ask us very, very important questions like why does this company exist? Who is your target customer? What are they going to pay for? All these questions that our investors are asking us, Tata's asking us as well. And for someone who's actually never been able to actually see the program or use it, for his mind to be able to work 10 levels, 10 steps ahead of everyone else is just mind-boggling.
So was he into business at any time?
Never.
Never.
So
Never.
it's really interesting how he...
For him, it was all intellectual curiosity.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, money was never important to my father. He was a professor, very quintessentially that, but knowledge was very important.
Yes,
and I remember the recent birthday of my son. We recorded the happy birthday greeting. Every birthday, every anniversary, Appa's message was something that we looked forward to every morning. And in this, that's what he says, you know, may you be successful, may you live happily. And the last one is, may your knowledge grow. He always said that was the only thing for him that was worth having. The rest was, money was important to eat. That's it. It was not about making it or anything like that.
So, but you know, reality is, without knowledge, where will we be?
Yes, yes, exactly.
With knowledge, you make the money. Without knowledge, you cannot. The money can come today and it's gone.
Yes. I think we live in a knowledge economy. Exactly.
Knowledge is priceless.
And I think something else, and I mean, he was a very, very healthy 87-year-old.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that, and this is someone who couldn't see, right? And so, but what's amazing is because he was so intellectually curious and always keeping his mind active for many hours a day, that kept him young.
Yes.
That kept him active.
Yes.
And I think that went a long way into keeping him healthy and active and having a positive mind, because he was excited to engage in any type of intellectual conversation with anyone, and that's amazing. It doesn't matter who they are, their ages, what their background is.
Yeah, he wanted to learn about everything. That was very unusual, you know, like the other day we were talking about the Ramayana, and suddenly he says, how did Hanuman communicate with Rama? They were speaking different languages. In those days, how did that language communication happen? The questions that never occurred to anybody else would occur to my father. And it didn't matter what the area.
Right.
And I think knowledge, I'll just say this one other thing that I really admired about him, that, you know, as I said, during the later part of his life, his vision was gone. He would often close his eyes and sit down. And we would say, why are you sleeping so much? He goes, I'm not sleeping. I have memorized my favorite books and I'm reading them as I have closed my eyes. And so knowledge was everything. And as my daughter said, I think it kept him young. He was never bored, never depressed.
Bored.
Never came across as being bored at all.
Never.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter that he never went anywhere or he wasn't able to see.
And people come to the US and normally complain, I'm so bored, I got nothing to do. I never heard that.
No.
You always found things to do.
Yeah, and you want to comment on that? I know, Mummy, you never complain about being bored either.
He never complained about his weakness. I used to ask him, now you can't see, you can't read. See, I have read enough and everything is in my mind. I have no complaint, he says.
So now we both spoke, you know, we spoke about knowledge and everything else. Now you being the wife, what is your interpretation? We had a good conversation of how we would go around the world and invite you and you wouldn't go. So can you share some of that wisdom to our viewers right now?
How I feel in his absence.
No. How you travel the world with Appa and what his
actually,
comments.
When he was doing his PhD, he wanted to take me because I have a baby, it did not work. But he has promised that one day I will take you around the world, and he did. And he will explain things to me, but I am not as curious, to be frank, I am not as curious about things as he was. But so he will jot down all the important facts. Till now I have the diary. When the Notre Dame Church accident happened, I went back to his diary, the way he has written about it, you see. And then he said, now read. And not only that, after our trip we came back and he made slides of those places, and I was teaching in my college. He said, you give a presentation in the college. At that time this TV was not this common. So he had sent his assistant, made the slides, he operated those slides and made a presentation of the world tour that I have made with him. And he made the script for me and made me practice standing before the mirror.
Well, that's the best way to practice, right? To stand in front of the mirror, you can see your posture. You say he had technology before his time.
Oh,
yes.
So which year this is? You're probably talking the 60s or 70s, 70s probably.
77. It is
Between 70 and 80,
later.
But in the 60s is when he went to the Soviet Union and he brought all these interesting technologies. We have this record with my picture on it, with my voice recorded on it.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Any outstanding new age technology of that time, he brought that. You know, we have like these grinders that you have, the mixers. At that time, it was not common.
No.
Anything that was out there, he was fascinated by it. We had cameras, we had, you know, we used to make prints at home. He was a very good photographer too. So he would do all of that and bring that information to us. So very, very technologically advanced, curious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not only that, he was in the Moscow radio when he was a student.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and he used to speak in Tamil about the satellite program and all that. And when he came back, my mother-in-law, very intelligent person, and could not understand the satellite. The way he used to sit with her and explain in Tamil, I used to think, what a job like that. I used to think, but he made her understand how that works.
Yeah, I want to add that, you know, so Appa went to Russia without knowing Russian. He went to do his PhD. And can you imagine that you don't know the language and you have to do it in that language?
Oh, wow.
He got so good at Russian that he got hired by Moscow radio.
That's what you're saying.
Within 6 months. And of course, his Tamil was phenomenal, you know. So he became the translator from Russian to Tamil. And so it was, and when that was the time the Sputnik was being launched, so they had to discover some new Tamil words, because what do you talk about satellite, and he talks about those challenges and everything.
Wow, so he was quite a linguist too.
Oh yes, loved languages.
And I think that's where you got your love for languages from.
Yes.
So how many languages he used to speak?
He spoke 4, but very well. I mean, his Russian was, for him it was not just he knew the language, he could write. He knew the literature.
He probably really went into
when he does anything, goes into depth. So.
He was a translator for technical books from Russian to
English. Yeah. So English, Russian and Tamil. I mean, he knew the literature very, very well. Other languages he knew a little bit, but English, Russian and Tamil, he can write poetry in any of those languages.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
Russian of all things.
Yeah, he loved Russian. He thought it was a beautiful language. And again, you know, Russia also a lot of love for the arts. So his passion for the arts, he saw the Russian ballet, used to fascinate him, and he used to talk about with us a lot. And so it was fabulous, yeah.
So he was really forward thinking, Amrita.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. In all those years back, he was that much more forward thinking. And how was he? Was astrology one of his?
Oh, he hated astrology.
Okay.
Astrology was something that anything that he could not have evidence based, he would not go there. Scriptures were very important to him, but all these kinds of things, that which he didn't understand, he respected it, but he wouldn't go into things that he could not clearly understand what it was about. So astrology, all of that was not his thing. And superstition, he was completely against it. So he was very spiritually aware, but no superstition ever in our house. We were not encouraged with superstition at all. He would stay away from that. Definitely a Renaissance man. I mean, when it came, even when people said, you know, women, you should do this or that. I mean, he broke the any of the rules on that. I mean, when he sent me to America, you know, I was
Young.
19. It was not common, and people said, you know, what are you doing here? And he said, I have every faith in my daughter. I've taught her all. I've given her the basics, and I'm sure she will do well. And even now, when you ask him what he's most proud of, he says, my daughter and my granddaughters are educated and attaining their potential. My wife, she's attaining her potential, and that's what was most important to him. So, you know, he had 2 girls, and when people said, how come you stopped with 2 girls? He says, I wanted 2 children, and I am going to let them attain their potential. He saw no difference between boys or girls, and felt very proud to support us.
That is fantastic. So Amrita, in closing remarks, what do you have to let us, the world, know about Tata and you?
Tata and me. I have a very good story along the lines of his creativity and when I must have been 5 years old, and Tata decided I was on holiday and I really wanted to go to the Boston Aquarium. Tata agreed to take me to the aquarium. We went there, and Patti had packed our lunch in my lunchbox, my Little Mermaid lunchbox, and it fell. We were sitting on the Boston Harbor, and it fell into the Atlantic Ocean. As a 5-year-old, I was devastated. I was crying, and I said, Tata, I was like, don't worry, I'll buy you a new lunchbox, and that wasn't going to fly with me. So I ended up telling Tata, no, you have to figure out a way to get me back my lunchbox, even though I can see it floating away in the harbor. And Tata, being as creative as he is, he said, okay. And he called the Coast Guard. And so the Coast Guard comes in, and I'm sitting there crying, and I say, I really need this lunchbox. The Coast Guard looks at Tata like, this is crazy. And he said, no, I need this lunchbox back. We sent the Coast Guard into the harbor to go take a little rowboat and go pick up my lunchbox. But I can't say how many other grandfathers would be that creative to think of that as a solution and retrieve probably at that time, my $3 lunchbox.
Yeah, and the thing is, most grandfathers would be scared to even go and approach the coast. You know, so that shows his how courageous he was.
His confidence,
and courage. I would just put that as the last thing.
Courage.
That for a man who had never seen the world, he had no fear to travel the world and absorb everything around him. And I think that's the courage.
Even in cultures and environments where he was not familiar.
And the last word to you.
I think honorably husbanded, and very blessed to have a husband with whom I lived for 62 years.
Oh, for sure.
I married a mass of clay and gave shape to it. That is how I take it.
Wow.
An amazing mass of clay, I must say.
You married a mass of clay.
He married a mass of clay.
And gave shape to her.
Married a mass of clay.
So you call yourself a mass of clay.
And I was very raw when I got married. Even now, I don't think I have refined, but still.
And I just feel so blessed to get to know all of you, and thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, we thank you for this opportunity.
Amrita,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Auntie Ranjini, good to see you.
It means a lot to be able to share.
It's been a special moment. Thank you.
So I'm your host, Amsha Naidu from Be My Guest. Till we meet again. Bye-bye. Take care.